Picture this. The year is 9 AD. We're in the imperial palace on the Palatine Hill in Rome. This is, the absolute center of the world.
It's a place of just unimaginable luxury. Marble floors, gold ceilings, Greek statues everywhere. It's the heart of power.
But in one room, that whole image of imperial majesty is just completely falling apart. There's this old man, he's 72, and he is, without a doubt, the most powerful man on earth.
And he is having a complete breakdown.
A total meltdown.
It's a really uncomfortable image. He hasn't slept. He's let his hair and his beard grow out, which for a Roman noble was a specific sign of deep mourning. And he is literally banging his head against a door frame.
Just over and over again. And he's screaming a name.
Yes, Quintilius Varus, give me back my legions. It echoes through the palace.
And this man is Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, the one they call the father of the fatherland.
The man who brought the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. And yet here he is in this moment of just raw human despair. It's maybe the most honest look we ever get at the man behind the marble statue.
Exactly, because that statue is what we usually think of, right? The Augustus of Prima Porta.
Oh, yeah, the propaganda piece. He's standing there, eternally young, calm, powerful. He's even barefoot, which is a subtle way of saying he's divine.
There's a little Cupid hanging off his leg, reminding everyone he's descended from the goddess Venus.
Right. It's serene, it's perfect, and it is a complete and total lie.
And that contrast, that's what we're here to talk about today. Because Augustus himself was obsessed with it. I mean, think about his famous last words to the public.
I found Rome a city of clay, but I left it a city of marble.
A perfect soundbite.
Mm-hmm.
But then he whispered something else to his close friends right as he was dying.
He did. He switched into Greek, which was the language of, high culture and the theater. And he asked them, have I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit.
Wow.
And that right there, that's the key. Augustus wasn't just a ruler, he was an actor. The greatest political performer, maybe ever.
So that's our mission today. We are going to try and dismantle that marble statue. We're going to look at the sources, Suetonius, Cassius Dio, the archaeology, to find the real person underneath. How does this sickly, overlooked kid named Octavius outplay everyone?
How does he convince a republic that hated the idea of kings, to accept an emperor and then rule for 40 years? It's the greatest political magic trick ever performed.
So let's start at the very beginning, before all the masks were put on. We're going back to 63 BC.
And 63 BC is already a chaotic year for Rome, even without this baby being born.
Right, this is Cicero's big year.
It's Cicero's consulship, yes. And it's the year of the Catiline conspiracy, where a broke nobleman basically tries to burn Rome to the ground and take over. The Republic is already showing these deep, deep cracks.
And into this chaos, in September, Gaius Octavius is born.
And if you were placing a bet back then on who would one day rule the world, you would not have picked this kid.
No. His family was, respectable? But they weren't the old guard. They weren't the ancient patrician families.
Not at all. They were from Velitrae, a town outside of Rome. His father was the first in their entire family line to ever make it into the Senate, so he was a novus homo, a new man.
They were wealthy from the equestrian class, but they weren't, politically powerful in that generational way.
They were outsiders. And then, to make it even harder for the boy, his father dies when he's only 4.
So he's raised by his mother, Atia, and this is the connection that changes everything.
This is the winning lottery ticket. Atia is the niece of Julius Caesar. That makes young Octavius the great-nephew of the most ambitious man in Rome.
But still, a great-nephew is just a great-nephew. Caesar had a lot of relatives. And from what the sources say, Octavius was not exactly a picture of Roman strength.
No, he was fragile. The sickly label just follows him his entire life. Suetonius gives us a whole list of his problems: stomach issues, he couldn't handle the cold, he'd get these mysterious fevers that would just knock him out for weeks.
He wasn't the ideal Roman boy out exercising in the fields.
Not at all. He was kept inside, looked after by his mother and his grandmother. He was sheltered.
But maybe that's what made him so different. He wasn't building his body, he was building his mind. I was really struck by who his tutor was, a man named Athenodorus of Tarsus.
A fascinating choice. Athenodorus was a Stoic philosopher, and Stoicism then wasn't just about, having a stiff upper lip. It was about logic. It was about reason and controlling your emotions to see the world clearly.
There's that incredible story about him, the ghost story.
Yes, it's such a great way to understand the kind of thinking that shaped young Octavius.
Okay, you have to tell it.
So the story goes, Athenodorus is in Athens, and he rents a house that's suspiciously cheap. The neighbors warn him it's haunted. A ghost in chains appears every night and makes a racket.
So naturally, he rents it anyway.
Of course.
Right.
He's a stoic. So he sets up his desk, he starts writing. Middle of the night, sure enough, he hears the chains rattling. He doesn't even look up.
He just keeps writing.
Keeps writing. The noise gets louder. The ghost comes right into the room. Finally, Athenodorus looks up, sees the ghost beckoning to him, and he just sort of waves his hand as if to say, hang on a second, I'm finishing a thought.
That is incredible. The ultimate power move against a ghost.
Right. Then he gets up, follows the ghost to a spot in the courtyard, marks the spot, and goes back to bed. The next day, he gets the local officials to dig, and what do they find?
A skeleton in chains.
A skeleton in chains. They give it a proper burial, and the haunting stops.
So the lesson is, don't panic, don't be afraid of this spooky thing, analyze it, find the root cause, and solve the problem logically.
Precisely. That is the mind of Augustus in a nutshell. He learned very early that he couldn't overpower people physically, he had to outthink them.
So when does the great man himself, Julius Caesar, finally start to notice this kid?
It's a gradual process. Octavius gives his first public speech when he's just 12 years old, a funeral eulogy for his grandmother, who was Caesar's sister. So that puts him on the map.
A little blip on the radar.
Exactly. But the real turning point comes in 45 BC. Caesar's in Spain for the Battle of Munda. This is the last bloody chapter of his civil war against Pompey's sons.
And Octavius is supposed to go, but true to form, he gets sick.
He gets sick, but this is the moment where his willpower just overrides his physical weakness. As soon as he can stand, he insists on going. He sets sail for Spain.
And it does not go smoothly.
It's a disaster. He gets shipwrecked. He washes up on an enemy-controlled coastline with just a handful of friends.
And this sheltered, sickly teenager, what does he do?
He leads his small group on a trek across hostile territory, dodging enemy patrols through the mountains until he finally walks into Caesar's camp.
Imagine Caesar's face. He's this hardened general, and his pale teenage nephew, who he probably thought was still in bed in Rome, just appears out of the wilderness.
It must have been a revelation. Caesar saw determination. He saw what the Romans called virtus, that combination of courage and excellence. He saw someone who refused to give up.
And that's what sealed it.
It seems so. Because shortly after that, Caesar goes back to Rome and secretly files a new will with the Vestal Virgins. And in that will, he names Octavius as his main heir and officially adopts him as his son.
But the key is, Octavius has no idea.
Complete secret. Caesar sends him off across the Adriatic to Apollonia in modern-day Albania. He's there to finish his studies and get some military training with the legions. He's there with his best friend, Marcus Agrippa, a name we absolutely have to remember.
So he's just going about his business thinking he's just a great nephew with some potential.
Exactly. And then a messenger arrives. It's the Ides of March, 44 BC. Caesar has been assassinated.
The entire world just shatters.
And the advice he gets from his family back home, his mother and his stepfather, is very clear.
Tight.
Hide. They tell him, lay low, do not accept the inheritance. If you take Ceres' name, the men who killed him will kill you too.
Which, to be fair, was probably very good advice.
It was the only rational advice. You have these powerful senators, Brutus and Cassius, calling themselves the liberators. You have Mark Antony, Caesar's top general, who has seized all of Caesar's papers and money in Rome. For an 18-year-old kid to walk into that hornet's nest, it was suicide.
But he doesn't take the advice.
He completely ignores it. This is the moment the boy becomes the man. He sails for Italy, he lands, finds out the details of the will, and he makes the decision that changes everything. He accepts the inheritance, he accepts the adoption.
He starts calling himself Caesar.
Instantly, he tells everyone, my name is Gaius Julius Caesar. Now, for clarity, historians call him Octavian during this period, but he never used that name. It made him sound like little Octavius.
The name Caesar was his weapon.
It was everything. It was a brand name that gave him the automatic loyalty of thousands of Caesar's veteran soldiers. It was the only real power he had.
And you just have to imagine the scene in Rome. Here comes this skinny, pale teenager, and you have Mark Antony, this big, brawling, experienced general who just looks at him and laughs.
He completely dismissed him. Antony called him a boy who owes everything to a name.
And he wasn't the only one who underestimated him. The great statesman, Cicero, did too.
Oh, Cicero's mistake was maybe the biggest of all. Cicero despised Antony. He thought, aha, I can use this boy. I'll use Caesar's heir and his loyal veterans to crush Antony, and then I'll get rid of the boy.
He had that famous quote about him.
Yes. The young man is to be praised, ornamented, and discarded.
That's just dripping with condescension.
It's the arrogance of the old guard. They saw him as a pawn. But Octavian heard about that quote, and he was not going to be discarded.
He plays them all off each other.
Brilliantly. He plays the Senate against Antony and Antony against the Senate until he's built up enough military power that they have to take him seriously.
Which leads to the meeting in 43 BC.
Yes, near Bologna. Octavian, Antony, and another of Caesar's generals, Lepidus, meet on a little island in a river. They were so paranoid they had the island search for assassins before they would even talk.
And there they form the second triumvirate. Now, this wasn't like the first one with Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus, was it?
No, that was a secret handshake deal. This was a legal public dictatorship. They had a law passed, the Lex Titia, giving them absolute power for 5 years to, and this is a great irony, restore the Republic.
And their first act of restoration is one of the darkest chapters in Roman history.
The proscription.
Explain what that actually was, because the name sounds almost bureaucratic, but the reality was a bloodbath.
It was a purge. They needed two things: money to pay their massive armies and to eliminate all their political enemies. So they posted lists of names in the Roman Forum.
And if your name was on the list,
you were an outlaw. Anyone could kill you on sight with no penalty. In fact, you'd get a reward for bringing your head to the triumvirs. All your property was confiscated by the start.
So it's neighbors turning on neighbors. Slaves betraying their masters.
It was sheer terror. We're talking about 300 senators and around 2,000 knights murdered. And the most famous name on that list was Cicero.
Antony insisted on it, didn't he?
He hated Cicero, demanded his death. And Octavian, who had been an ally of Cicero's, who had called him father, he argued against it.
For how long?
The sources say for 2 days, but in the end, he gave in. He traded Cicero's life to seal the deal with Antony. It was just cold, hard politics.
They hunted Cicero down. His head and his hands were cut off and nailed to the rostra, the speaker's platform in the forum.
The very platform where he'd given his speeches against Antony. It was a terrifying message. The old republic, the republic of laws and oratory, was dead. Only the sword mattered now.
So with Rome pacified, they turned their attention to the east, to Caesar's assassins.
Right. The showdown at Philippi in 42 BC, they crushed the armies of Brutus and Cassius. But it's really important to note, for our story of Octavian, he's not the hero of this battle.
He was sick again.
He was sick again. He barely participates. Antony's the one who leads the legions. Antony is the one who gets the military glory. And this just sets the stage for the next 10 years of rivalry.
So they divide the world. Antony takes the rich, glamorous east.
He gets to reorganize provinces, deal with kings and queens, and collect enormous amounts of wealth.
And Octavian gets the leftovers.
He gets Italy and the West, which is a total mess. It's full of angry, demobilized soldiers who all want one thing: land. And he has to take that land from Italian farmers to give it to them.
Making him incredibly unpopular.
It looked like he got the raw end of the deal. But he had two things Antony didn't. He had Rome as his home base, and he had Marcus Agrippa.
You cannot overstate how important Agrippa was.
You really can't. If Octavian was the political brain, Agrippa was the iron fist. An absolute military genius, a brilliant engineer, and completely unshakably loyal.
So while Antony is off in Egypt, getting entangled with Cleopatra,
and living this lavish Eastern lifestyle, which Octavian's propaganda machine uses against him mercilessly.
right, this is where the spin starts.
Oh, he's a master of it. He paints Antony not as a Roman rival, but as a foreign enemy. The narrative is, Antony has gone native. He's become a slave to this Egyptian sorceress. He wants to move the capital of the empire to Alexandria.
He's betraying his Roman identity.
Exactly. He's turning his back on Roman values. And then in 32 BC, Octavian pulls off his masterstroke of propaganda, the will.
He steals Antony's will.
He illegally seizes it from the Vestal Virgins, which was a huge sacrilege, and he reads it aloud to the Senate. And this will supposedly says that Antony wants to be buried in Alexandria next to Cleopatra,
Not in Rome.
and that he's leaving Roman provinces to the children he had with Cleopatra. That was it. That was the final straw. Public opinion swung decisively against Antony.
And war is declared. Not on Antony, though. That's the clever part.
Now, war is declared on Cleopatra. It's framed as a patriotic war against a foreign queen, not another messy Roman civil war.
Which all leads to the final confrontation, the Battle of Actium in 31 BC.
And this is not the epic ship-to-ship slugfest you see in movies. This is a story of tactics and technology.
So Antony has the bigger ships.
Huge ships. They were like floating fortresses.
Yeah.
Giant conqueremes and even desarines with towers full of archers. They were designed to just ram and board the enemy, but they were slow. And they were undermanned because a plague had hit his camp.
And what does Agrippa, who's commanding Octavian's fleet, have?
He has Liburnians. They were smaller, faster, much more maneuverable ships. Basically, the sports cars of the ancient navy.
And they had a secret weapon.
The harpax. It was essentially a grappling hook that was fired from a ballista, a giant crossbow, so they could fire it from a distance, snag one of Antony's big, clumsy ships, and then either reel it in to be boarded by multiple smaller ships, or just hold it still to be pelted with projectiles.
It's a total tactical mismatch.
It is. And at a key moment in the battle, Cleopatra, seeing that things are not going well, decides to cut her losses. She flees with her squadron of 60 ships, which were full of the war treasury.
And Antony.
Antony sees her go, and he just abandons his entire fleet. He abandons his men and sails after her. It's an absolute collapse of leadership.
The rest of his fleet surrenders. He and Cleopatra flee to Egypt, where they commit suicide the following year.
And just like that, it's over. At 32 years old, Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus is the undisputed master of the Roman world.
And he now faces the exact same problem his great-uncle faced. You've won, you have all the power, but the Romans despise kings. So how do you hold on to absolute power without looking like you have it?
This is where the warlord transforms into the political artist. This is Act 2, the illusion of the Republic.
It starts in 27 BC with this brilliant piece of theater.
The first settlement. He walks into the Senate, a Senate he has packed with his own supporters, and he makes a grand announcement. He says, "The civil wars are over, the Republic is restored. I hereby lay down all my emergency powers and return control of the provinces and the armies to you, the Senate, and people of Rome."
He quits.
He pretends to quit. He knows they can't possibly accept his resignation. If he steps down, the power vacuum will suck them right back into another civil war within weeks.
So they panic.
They panic. They beg him to stay. They plead with him to save the state. And so, reluctantly, he agrees to a compromise.
What's the deal?
He says, "All right, I will take responsibility for the troublesome provinces. The ones on the frontiers, like Gaul, Spain, Syria, Egypt. The places where the legions are needed to fight barbarians. You, the Senate, can have the nice, peaceful, rich provinces in the middle of the empire."
Which sounds incredibly generous, but the provinces with the legions
are the provinces with all the power. He basically says, you can run the administration, I'll run the army. It was a genius move. On paper, the Republic was back. In reality, he controlled nearly every soldier in the Roman military.
And it's at this point he gets a new name.
Yes. The Senate bestows upon him the title Augustus.
Which doesn't mean emperor or king.
No, it's a religious term. It means the revered one or the illustrious one. It has connotations of divine approval. It's just, he's more than a man, but it carefully avoids any political title that would get him assassinated.
He also started calling himself princeps.
Yes, princeps civitatis, first citizen. The idea was, I'm not your boss, I'm just one of you, the first among equals. It was a beautiful, elegant lie that allowed the proud Roman aristocracy to save face while he ran the show.
He tinkers with this system again a few years later, in 23 BC.
He does. He gets terribly ill and almost dies. And I think that brush with death makes him realize he needs to refine the system. Holding the consulship every single year was making the other senators resentful.
There were only 2 spots, and he was taking up one of them.
Right. It blocked their path to glory. So he gives up the consulship, and in exchange, the Senate grants him 2 crucial powers for life: Tribunicia Potestas and Imperium Maius.
Okay, break those down. What do they mean in practice?
Tribunicia Potestas is tribunician power. It gave him all the powers of a tribune of the plebs. It meant his body was legally sacrosanct, untouchable, he could propose legislation, and most importantly, he could veto any action by the Senate or any other magistrate.
So he could stop anything he didn't like.
Anything. And Imperium Maius means greater power. It meant that his authority as a commander outranked that of any other governor anywhere in the empire, even in the Senate's own provinces.
So he could step in and overrule anyone, anywhere, at any time.
Exactly. He no longer needed a specific office because he held all the crucial powers of every office, all wrapped up in his person. The Republican system was a hollow shell, and he was the ghost in the machine.
And while he's building this incredible political structure, he's also literally rebuilding the city of Rome. His famous quote about finding a city of brick and leaving it a city of marble. Was that true?
Largely, yes. He launched the biggest urban renewal project in Roman history. He restored 82 temples. He built a new forum. He built the altar of peace, the Arapakis. But it wasn't just about grand monuments. It was about practical things.
The stuff people actually notice in their daily lives.
The things that make life better. Rome had no professional fire department before Augustus. He created one, the Vigiles. He created a police force. He created an imperial postal service. He organized the grain supplies so there were no more famines.
He made the city work.
He brought order. And the average person in the street loved him for it. They didn't care that the Senate had lost its power. They cared that their apartment building wasn't going to burn down and that bread was cheap.
But there's a darker, more intrusive side to this obsession with order, his moral legislation.
Yes, the Julian laws. He decided that Rome's problem wasn't just its buildings, it was its soul. He saw the aristocracy as decadent and immoral.
So he passed these very strict laws.
Laws to encourage marriage and having children. He put penalties on being unmarried or childless, and he made adultery a public crime for the first time.
Before that, it was a private family matter.
Right. A husband could deal with an unfaithful wife. Augustus made it a crime against the state. An adulterous woman could be banished, lose her property.
The incredible irony being, of course, that he himself was not exactly a faithful husband.
Not at all. Suetonius is quite clear that he had numerous affairs. But the hypocrisy of it all came crashing down on him in the most personal and tragic way imaginable. Through his daughter, Julia.
His only biological child.
His only child. He adored her, but he also used her ruthlessly as a political pawn, marrying her off to one potential heir after another. But Julia was spirited. She was smart, funny, and she deeply resented the oppressive, puritanical atmosphere her father had created.
And she rebelled.
In a spectacular way. She was accused of having multiple affairs with prominent young noblemen, of holding wild parties in the forum itself, right under the shadow of her father's temples to morality.
The scandal must have been enormous.
It was a catastrophe for Augustus. His own daughter had publicly and flagrantly broken his signature law. He was trapped. If he forgave her, he would look like a hypocrite, and his moral authority would be destroyed.
So he had to enforce the law.
He had to. He convened a council, and in a rage, he banished his own daughter.
To the island of Pandateria.
A tiny, barren rock in the sea. He forbade her from having wine or any male visitors. He basically threw her in a gilded prison. He never saw her again.
It's just heartbreaking. It shows the cost of the role he was playing. He couldn't be a father. He had to be Augustus.
And that profound loneliness, that sense of tragedy in his own family, it just deepened as he got older, because at the same time his family was falling apart, a storm was gathering on the northern frontier of the empire.
Right. Let's talk foreign policy. For all the talk of the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, it wasn't very peaceful on the borders, was it?
No, Augustus was a major expansionist. He added more territory to the empire than anyone. He conquered Egypt, parts of modern Turkey, the Alps, and pushed the border all the way to the Danube River.
But his big ambition was Germany.
Germania. The goal was to push the border from the Rhine River forward to the Elbe. It would have dramatically shortened the frontier they had to defend. It was a logical, strategic move.
And he sent a man named Publius Quinctilius Varus to govern this new territory.
Varus was more of an administrator than a general. He'd been the governor of Syria, where he'd been very successful. But he fundamentally misunderstood the Germans. He treated them as a conquered people, imposing Roman taxes and laws.
And he put his trust in the wrong person.
He put his trust in a German chieftain named Arminius.
Arminius is such a fascinating character. A hero to the Germans, a traitor to the Romans.
He's incredibly complex. He was a prince of the Cherusci tribe, but he'd been raised in Rome. He was a Roman citizen, a Roman knight. He spoke perfect Latin. He understood Roman military tactics from the inside. Varus saw him as a loyal ally.
But secretly, Arminius was uniting the German tribes against Rome.
And in the autumn of 9 AD, he springs his trap. He tells Varus about a minor rebellion happening in a remote area, and he convinces Varus to take a shortcut through the Teutoburg forest to put it down.
A forest Varus and his legions didn't know.
An ambush. 3 entire legions, the 17th, 18th, and 19th, a column of maybe 20,000 men stretched out for miles, marching into this dense, dark forest. And then it starts to rain.
A torrential downpour.
The ground turns to mud. The Romans' big shields get waterlogged and heavy. Their formations break down in the narrow, swampy terrain. And that's when Arminius' warriors attack from all sides.
It's a slaughter.
It's a 3-day running massacre. The Romans are picked off, demoralized, unable to fight effectively. Varus, seeing that all is lost, kills himself.
3 legions, just gone, wiped from the army list. The sacred eagle standards are captured.
The news, when it finally reaches Rome, causes absolute panic. Augustus is terrified the Germans are going to march all the way to Italy, and it breaks him. That's the moment that leads him to bang his head against the door, screaming Varus's name.
It's the event that puts a permanent stop to Roman expansion in that direction. The Rhine becomes the border, and that decision shapes the future of Europe.
It creates the fundamental divide between the Latin world and the Germanic world that persists in some ways to this day.
He's facing this catastrophic military failure, and at the same time, he's facing an even more prolonged and personal disaster at home: succession.
It's like a curse. The man who could control an empire could not control his own bloodline. He outlived every single heir he chose.
And he needed an heir. Not for vanity, but to prevent the exact kind of chaos he had ended. He needed a smooth transfer of power.
Absolutely. So let's run down the tragic list. First, there was Marcellus, his nephew and son-in-law. Young, popular, the perfect choice. He died of a fever in 23 BC. Augustus was devastated.
So next up was Agrippa.
His old, trusted friend, Agrippa. He forced Agrippa to marry his widowed daughter, Julia. They had 2 sons, Gaius and Lucius. For a while, this looked like the solution. Agrippa was essentially co-ruler, but then Agrippa died in 12 BC.
Which left the 2 grandsons, Gaius and Lucius.
These were the boys he pinned all his hopes on. They were his own blood. He adopted them as his sons. He personally supervised their education. He showered them with honors. They were the princes of youth.
And what happened to them?
Lucius died of an illness while on a mission in Gaul in 2 AD. 2 years later, his older brother Gaius died from a wound he received during a campaign in Armenia.
It's just unbelievable. Every single person he designates as his successor dies.
Which leaves him, in 4 AD, with only one option left. The one man he never wanted. His stepson, Tiberius.
Why did he dislike Tiberius so much? By all accounts, Tiberius was a brilliant general.
He was. He was militarily very capable. But he was gloomy, morose, and deeply resentful. He wasn't charming like the Julian boys. Augustus found him unpleasant company. But by then, there was literally no one else.
It was Tiberius or civil war.
Exactly. So Augustus adopts him, but he does it with a public statement saying, "I do this for the good of the state." It was the ultimate backhanded compliment.
I'm making you my heir because I have to, not because I want to.
And Tiberius knew it. It soured their whole relationship and poisoned his future reign before it even began.
So we come to the end of this long, incredible life. It's 14 AD. Augustus is 75 years old, and he knows the end is near.
He's at his family's old villa at Nola, near Naples. And on his last day, August 19th, he performs one last time. He asks for a mirror, has his hair combed, has his jaw set. He wants to look the part of Augustus for his final scene.
And then he calls his friends in and asks them that question.
Has I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit. Such a moment of chilling self-awareness. He knew it was a performance.
He knew his whole life's work. The restored republic was a magnificent illusion he had created and starred in.
He was the ultimate actor-manager of the Roman state. And his very final words were to his wife of over 50 years, Livia. Livia, remember our marriage. Farewell.
But even in death, he didn't leave his story to chance, did he?
Not for a second. He left behind a document called the Res Gestae Divi Augusti, the Deeds of the Divine Augustus. It's his political autobiography.
And he had it carved on bronze pillars outside his mausoleum and copied on temple walls across the entire empire.
We have a nearly complete copy from a temple in modern Turkey. It's his final act of propaganda. He lists every honor he received, every building he constructed, every war he won. He conveniently leaves out the proscriptions and the disaster in the Teutoburg forest. He's curating his own legacy from beyond the grave.
So when we strip it all away, when we look past the res gestae and the marble statues, what's the final verdict on this man?
I think it comes down to a single monumental trade-off. He went to the Roman people, who were exhausted after 100 years of brutal civil war, and he made them an offer. He said, "Give me your freedom and I will give you peace and stability."
And they took the deal?
They took the deal. And he delivered. The Pax Romana was real. For 2 centuries, the Mediterranean world saw a level of peace and prosperity it had never known before and would not know again for over 1,000 years.
But the price was the death of the Republic, the loss of political liberty. He created a system that was efficient and stable, but it was an autocracy.
And that's the fatal flaw. The system worked under a genius like Augustus. But the same system, the same concentration of absolute power, also produced monsters like Caligula and Nero. He created a machine that could be used for immense good or immense evil, depending entirely on the man at the controls.
So you saved Rome from itself, But in doing so, he created the very system that would, centuries later, lead to its ruin.
You could say he found Rome a chaotic democracy and left it an orderly, beautiful prison. A gilded cage, to be sure, but a cage nonetheless.
And that really is the question that hangs over his entire legacy, isn't it? Was the peace he created worth the freedom that was lost? That's what we want to leave you with today. Was Augustus a savior who rescued Rome from chaos? Or was he a tyrant who was just so brilliant at playing the part of a savior that we're still applauding him 2,000 years later?
It's a question that never gets old.
We hope you enjoyed this journey into the incredibly complex life of the first emperor. If you enjoyed untangling the web of Augustus Caesar, make sure to subscribe to the History Titans channel. Like and share this video to help us keep the history alive.
And definitely let us know in the comments. Do you think Augustus saved Rome? Or did he destroy what made it great?
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.